So while I'm reading comments to a lot of these videos I've been putting up lately, there's a lot of people who are like, the GH5 is where it's at. Micro Four Thirds is where it's at. Who needs that big body? Even on, camera bodies like the A9, and the GH5 is a compelling camera for a lot of people. But I don't personally see the appeal. So there was an interview recently with I believe the director of the guy in charge of the Lumix cameras from Panasonic, and so on DP Review, and I read that, and there was a couple of notes that I took off of that, and so I want to kind of share those sound bites, if you will, and add my opinion to them. So the GH5 immediately after announcement, and at launch, sold between 1.5 to 3 times what was anticipated. The GH5 topped U.S. charts for what I believe was probably B&H. The article said a major U.S. retailer. A lot of those early adopters, though, are anticipated to be video users, probably a lot of video users coming from either the GH4 or the 5D Mark III/5D Mark IV. So hey, I would really appreciate it if you could just click that subscribe button if this is entertaining, engaging, informative, useful content to you, even if it's a little controversial for you. I hope I'm bringing you a different opinion, a different side of the story, so that you can see all these issues a little bit differently. If it's doing any of that for you, I'd really appreciate it if you'd smash that like button or hit the subscribe. So thank you very much for your time and for your attention. So what this particular guy was saying was that the A7S took a lot of 5D users, and now he believes that the GH5 took a lot of 5D users, and they're doing that for the size. I think that it makes less sense for a 5D Mark IV user to go to a GH5 than a 5D Mark III user, because 5D Mark III didn't have continuous autofocus in video, i.e. dual pixel AF or movie servo AF, I guess Canon calls it, while the 5D Mark IV does, and it does have dual pixel. And I think that reliable autofocus system makes a lot of sense for someone to stick with, as opposed to Panasonic's and the GH5s, GH4, GH5's unreliable autofocus system. The size is a great factor, but then there's Sony if you want that. I mean, what gets to me about it is there are a lot of people who like the Micro Four Thirds, who really like that really deep depth of field, but if you're already shooting on a full frame body, you're probably going to want to keep shooting on a full frame body, because you can manipulate that depth of field with your aperture, as opposed to straight off the sensor, where you don't have as much control over the depth of field in the first place. What this guy was saying is the 422 10-bit color space was a huge draw for a lot of people. Normally, cameras with 422 10-bit take a real big chunk out of your wallet, and that's true. And that's a great, fantastic. That's one of the really the leading features of this camera. He was saying that they didn't include log because log the logarithmic profiles, because of the fact that logarithmic profiles have a particular value within the video industry, and so to put them in and not change the price, or to put them in and raise the price, didn't really make sense for them, because they wanted to keep the value of those logarithmic profiles. They wanted to maintain that value, and what I see that as being is less, we're maintaining the value of a logarithmic profile, and more, we want to call this feature particularly valuable, so we're going to charge for it. I think companies like Sony that will just go ahead and give you a logarithmic profile are going to, they're going to see some nice results from that, because of the fact that obviously they didn't do that with the A9, but they're going to see some good results out of that, because users, I myself am not a user, and I don't know many users among my photography nerd friends that would be interested in paying extra for a feature that myself and they believe should be baked in. They're going to be putting out an update to the video autofocus, which I think is very much needed. Panasonic believes that their depth from defocus system, which is not sensor dependent, plus continuous autofocus, contrast-based autofocus, can beat out phase detect autofocus, because phase detect requires your aperture be larger than f8. I don't think that makes any sense. I think when you have cameras like the A9 with 693 phase detect autofocus points, the ones with phase detect are going to be faster. That's borne out in the Sony Alpha 6000 series cameras. I think that just makes sense on the whole to put those in. And what Panasonic is saying is that it's going to cost us way too much money to do that R&D, to put those points in one sensor when we don't need to get really good autofocus. I don't know if I agree with that. I get the R&D dollars. They're trying to keep costs down. You can't really port that sensor down, when all your sensors are kind of the same size anyway with that micro four thirds, and to 1 inch. That is a size difference, but it's not like full frame to APS-C to micro four thirds to 1 inch, or full frame APS-C 1 inch like Sony has on tap, and Canon as well. So, I don't think it makes sense. If you're making a micro four thirds size camera and you're doing trickle down, then turn off some of the phase detect when you put it in a lower end camera. Don't just not have phase detect, in my opinion, but that's just me. Panasonic is going to try to double their market in the US by 2020. They're going to focus on the high-end consumer, as well as targeting users that are RX 100 oriented. They're going to try to produce products that can kind of compete with the RX 100 body, and I just don't see that working out so well unless they either bring a camera with a bigger sensor, or making cameras that have better autofocus, that have better stills features, that have better ISO performance, because in my opinion, that's what's keeping a lot of people from going towards this. That's what a lot of reviewers are saying. That's what I'm reading in a lot of comments. People that like the micro four thirds system like the fact that you don't really have to focus too hard, spend a lot of time on focusing, because micro four thirds means that your f4 is really deep in terms of depth of field, so you can get away with not having uber critical focus when you're dealing with difficult environments. But I think that having a bigger sensor that can capture more light, give you more detail in the highlights and the shadows, is going to continue to be valuable to high-end videographers. That compact size isn't going to beat out, a mid to high-end APS-C user like an Alpha 6000 series user, or even like an 80D user, because that GH5 is comparable in size to a lot of these mid-size APS-C DSLRs. You have to be able to fit all the heat dissipation, the battery, the processing, all this stuff into that package. That package is no longer competitive from a size perspective, except against full-frame cameras, and a camera like the A7S or the A7S Mark II, or the potential A7S Mark III. I don't think the GH5 wins any awards against those cameras for its form factor. Another thing that he was saying was that in order to financially amortize, those R&D dollars, you have to put these features in. They have to trickle down into your lower end camera. So the features in your flagship have to be reflected in your lower down cameras, and that's a very interesting thing, because what it makes me think immediately is that the GH5 is, the cameras that came out right around the time and after the GH5 all are in like one product line, and then the GH4, and then the same with the GH5, and that doesn't make all the sense in the world to me, because even if you cut out the 422 10-bit, maybe it's a 422 8-bit or a 420 10-bit or 420 8-bit, but you have better autofocus, better ISO handling, all this in, you know, your mid-tier or lower tier body, there's going to be a lot of people who are like, I just wanted better autofocus, or I just wanted better ISO performance. Like, I feel like you're going to pull a lot of users away from your flagship by making that, by Panasonic making that kind of a straight delineation. And I also think it kind of hurts their business model by coming out with, you know, these series in almost model year fashion, kind of like a car manufacturer. I feel like doing something more along the lines of what Sony's doing, where they're making the Alpha 6000 series, and then each one of those gets better, but those are completely separate from the Alpha 7 series, which are completely separate from the FS, you know, 5 and 7 series. I think that makes a whole lot more sense. That kind of business model makes a whole lot more sense to me, in maintaining value within each product line. I think also that, you know, and if we're going to go with these other big first-party manufacturers like Canon are responding closer to the market with all of their devices, and so you're seeing features trickle in even from the bottom, like in the M6, the T7i, and the 77D, that were absent even in the 80D, at least in their metering and the processor, because they're saying, okay, these features are what people are asking for, and we're going to give it to them in a particular package that can appeal to them a little bit better. That makes a whole lot of sense to me, and then those can move back up into like the 6D. I mean, Dual Pixel AF hit the 5D Mark IV after the 80D, and then it hit the Rebel line, and now I'm assuming it's going to go into the 60. So in terms of product development, I think what you need to do is have like product bands, you know, within a 5-year window, what kind of products are coming, what kind of features are you putting in your products. I don't think having model years makes too much sense. Additionally, this gentleman from Panasonic is anticipating 8K video by 2020, that the Olympics will be filmed in 8K, and that Panasonic is going to be doing a lot of that video recording. Additionally, he spent a lot of time emphasizing the future, Panasonic's future, as well as the fact that Panasonic listens to its customers. And I don't know if I believe that entirely, based on the ISO performance, high ISO performance not changing drastically, as well as the continuous autofocus in video not being a good enough upgrade in the GH5 from the GH4. Although it is better, it's not good enough from all the stuff that I've seen. So that's kind of the update for today. So thank you very much for your time and for your attention. Please don't hesitate to check out the links in the description and like, comment, or subscribe. I really appreciate you spending your time with me today, and I hope you have a great one. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. There we go.